We'll start with the panel and we'll be joined by Mr. Ahirwar shortly. Uh, Before I start this panel, very big thank you to you, gentlemen, and especially you, sir. I know you are going through pain right now. It's like it reminds me of an Ogden Nash poem that some pain are physical, some are mental, but there is one pain which is both, which is that is dental. And thank you so much. Despite that pain, you have made time for this event. Thank you so much. I'll try and restrict my questions to you, but since it is a subject that is very, very close to your heart and it is very important, again, a very big thank you for taking time out. I'll quickly start with you on this subject. Um, Gati Shakti, we all know how important and what kind of role it has played and has been playing in the supply chain management. I wanted to learn from you, sir. Uh, if we have to describe how has it changed the supply chain movement in the country, what would that be? How would you describe it?
Because as per the logistics, we always believe that you have to be follow JIT, which is just in time. So you neither before nor after. If you're coming early, that means you're working, increase your working capital. If you're delay, then your resources are ideal. You're increasing your cost and bring the inefficiency in the system. So I'll answer your two point two. One is you're asking from the Gati Shakti point of view. I'm sure by this time, last 2 years, we have seen how Gati Shakti have played a role. But especially, let me just give you a perspective from the government side. I'm sure Mr. Airwa is coming. He'll be throw more light, sitting inside the same ministries. But the biggest advantage the Gati Shakti has brought to all our 16 ministries and now across states, thing is that it has made our life easier. I remember we used to work, all of us know, all the ministries used to work in silos. So it has actually broken our silos. Now let me tell you, we start liking it. Initially it was कि भाई कौन काम करेगा इसके संग, all that issues were there. But now we see that if I have to plan a project, I say boss Gati Shakti portal पे जाओ ना, you will get all the data. First the easiest thing is that part is when you are planning a project. Then the second thing comes is then you start coordinating with other ministries. Suppose if I am doing, I'll give you an example of my sector and can be learned because my sector is normally involve many multimodal ministries in this. So I'll give a very simple example. If I'm developing a multimodal logistics park in a city, maybe you can take a case of Bangalore or Chennai or wherever it is, Nagpur, Indore, or another, currently we are planning at Pune, which is a tender stage. So the first thing is, of course, land, you get the topography, you get the forest details, thing is, which earlier you are not knowing which is coming is. But the more important is you also got to know what are the other utilities are coming and passing through that areas. Thing is, which is for the base year analysis, base data analysis. That you got to know, okay, this is my IST line is going, this is what the my gas pipeline going undergrounds and all. So you can always plan accordingly. Second thing is you also got to know that what is your economic nodes around that. Because when you're planning a multimodal parks, you're talking about consumption hub or the production hubs. Things. You know, in the surrounding areas, what are my industrial hubs which are also being planned by other departments. Not only by the central ministries, also by the state ministries. So it makes my planning much easier when I'm planning a project. But another what good things happen is, I don't know how many of you, I'm sure from the people from the government side, we attend the meetings there, and you present your project. It is not people see, some people say, Aapka Gati Shakti approval ho gaya. I don't see more than approval. I see this is a more easier life for me because when it goes there, all 16 line ministries give their suggestions and comments. कि अरे आप ये इसको जोड़ रहे हैं तो ये हमारा रेलवे से कैसे कनेक्ट हो जाएगा. Okay, you are also doing this project, we are also doing this project. Can we integrate this project together? So it is not just about timing of the planning of the project. It is also cost effectiveness, that duplicacy is not coming. Integrations become much easier, this thing is. And when you talk about multimodalities, we talk about multi-mode and multi-sectors from economic node point of view, this thing is. So that we are able to do, this thing is. So when you are appraising a project at the PM Gati Shakti and NPG group, whatever network planning group which we had, at the DPIIT level, where before that is a long process. So one is that people think it's just a portal and we put that thing in portal and get, no, that's only data exercise. After that, the interaction extra happened with those ministries. And the last, when your appraisal happened at that NPG level, is each ministries interact with the even defense is there. They see from strategic point of view, oh, you are coming here, you are doing northeast in this thing is, can we really utilize this infrastructure? So it is not just about infrastructure planning. So that is what the biggest advantage is coming in coming of developing this infrastructure projects. Now coming to answer of second part is supply chain. This thing is. So I will not go to history of, we have heard that we have high logistics costs and efficiency and transport and logistics systems, and we have to reach to a Singapore level, which is number one as per the World Bank studies, ranking comes. That's all fine, that's all good to understand the numbers per se. But one thing is, I think if you understand what World Bank study says, they have our ranking systems which they take a 5 or 6 parameters, infrastructure is there, process is there. So the total indexing comes the highest country, which Singapore got some 4.3 in terms of numbers, and we got some 3 point something. That's not important. Important is if you take that one delta, if you're able to achieve that, that will be able to bring more than 15 to 20% additional trade to your country. Growth in that. So if you are able to improvise the infrastructure to that level is, in terms of logistics, you see your 1/5 of the economic growth is coming by this only. Of course, it cannot happen in 1 year. It will take some time, which we are all of our thing is. So what is happening is we are setting up that infrastructure in place, which will change the dynamics. So when we work with the in our MOLPs per se, we work with our partner there in NICDCs. We work with the industrial state industrial nodes agencies. So there we integrate that how this will really help the industries to improvise the logistics efficiency.
Right,
And
sir.
which in turn will take. So today, if you ask me, in fact, I was talking to, before coming here, I was talking to, yeah, please. So I was talking to Prakash ji, आप कर रहे हैं तो same question in fact he asked. The thing is, so today our focus is maybe on the bricks and mortars. We're setting up infrastructures and creating a rail network, creating a road network. This thing is, but the moment you have a network of logistics facilities in the country, this thing is, and you have a network of high-speed rail and the high-speed road corridors, when I say expressway and access control, this thing is, and you have an economic road superimposed, this thing is, then the softer part will come is how the entire system will integrate. You are just not looking a port at the coastal area. You are also looking at inland, very good transport interchange facilities, which comes in terms of multimodal. The entire supply will change, and I always give that example. Now I'm looking from the industry, need to come forward. I'm still seeing in Indian industry that what we call is mass customization, economies of scale and economies of scope. Unless that happens, MMLB will not be successful. If MMLB has to be successful, the industry has to really convert its product for this thing. Then only you will to bring the economies of scale and the cost will come down.
Right, right. Thank you, sir.
Just to add on,
Yes,
because you have
please.
touched my subject in supply chain, and I'm still looking in India because 20 years before, almost 25 years before, when I was studying same subject in Europe, I said, अभी तो हमारे बहुत काम होना बाकी है. And I'll give you one example, which I'm sure many of you might have listened in previous conferences also. I give that example of, which we all of us are, many of our previous generation people are aware, is paint industry. I'm sure you might have heard, abhi to mera wala pila, mera wala pink. In fact, earlier days, you got the paint in what? Boxes. 1 liter lao, 2 liter lao, all that thing is.
True.
Now I bring this in, what supply chain and logistics meaning is in this. So when we say my pink and my, is not for the marketing. It's only helping it. It actually logistics and supply chain is reducing the cost. What happened? What changes happen if you see in 25 years? Now it all comes in big white containers. scale supply chain there increased, and you are getting small pigments. You go to the retailer, he see the computer, mix the shade, give you mass customization. Now you need what? I need only 900 ml or units for paint. This thing is you are saving 10%. It is not the inventory, it is not the packaging, it is not the transportation, it is entire supply chain in reducing the costs. Now the new industry which I am seeing in is in construction industries. I am sure many of you are aware what we call is normal guinea bag of the cement. Now the kind of logistic park we are building, we talk about the silos for the cement, because for the construction industries, whatever amount of cement you want directly come from the plant, store in larger this thing is from this, you are reducing in that, and customized product is being given to this thing. Same goes for steel. In steel, now what happened is, I'm sure many of your people are from the civil contracting side. You ask their pain. If you have to construct any building or any thing is, they need a steel particular size. They need to cut it, what you call bar bending schedules, and then do it. You see the inventory. So what is happening is, in supply chain, I outsource my 3PL. I give my schedule to my 3PL agencies. I need this schedule of this steel by this time. Just in time when I started my talk now, 1 minute before. So if I have to construct, suppose this hotel has to be reconstruct something, you can't store anything here. So if I tell at a logistic place, you have two options. Either you tell the manufacturing place which is far away, maybe from where you're getting, I don't know. The logistics place, which is MMLP in my opinion, there this is what nothing is value addition in the product. So that changing happening. Product is customized as per the customer requirement. It's a B2B requirement which is happening is. So what government is doing currently? Government is enabling the infrastructure to think is now look for industry to come forward and take it to the next level. Not very
Right.
long answer.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. And it's a subject which is very close to your heart, and I can totally understand how passionate you are about it. Thank you, Mr. Ahirwar, for joining us. And before, I'll just give you a minute to settle down. Before that, I'll ask Mr. Agarwal this question. Um, he talked about at length GS or on Gati Shakti. Dedicated freight corridor is we are looking at future of freight movement in the country. What sort of role would be what sort of role will Gati Shakti play for a smoother dedicated freight corridor movement when we are talking about? He told us about the supply chain movement from the dedicated freight point of view. If you could tell us more.
The Gati Shakti platform as such, it has helped in deciding about the alignment of the 3 new dedicated freight corridors which are being planned. So that's where the platform has helped. I mean, we were looking for few things, or rather we have learned from our mistakes in the first 2 ones, that now we are planning the DFC stations closer to the highways, because that's the one area where we had kind of missed out in the eastern and western DFC, and we were facing problems in getting the road connectivity to the terminals. So now in the next 3 for which the DPRs have been submitted to the railway board, we have specifically kept this aspect in mind, that there should be the DFC should be on the highway side of the Indian Railways track, and the distance be minimized as much as possible. So that's where the platform has helped. It has allowed us to see, I mean, if we make some change in the alignment of the location of the station, how does it affect the entire alignment? So that's where the planning part, it has helped quite a lot. Now the other part was the Gati Shakti policy as such, the terminal policy, which the Indian Railway has come out with. Now that has given us, in the present 2 DFCs, Eastern DFC and the Western DFC, we have come up with some very low cost terminals. I mean, that has given us a kind of framework on developing terminals on the DFCs. So again, going by that, I mean, the near the cities, now we are keeping provision at these stations already in the layout as well as the interlocking. that if we are to come up with RFPs for the low cost terminals, that is under the schedule 2 of the GCT policy, then we should already, I mean, it should be already part of it. The moment the DFC gets commissioned, we have those lines ready. We have that interlocking ready. It should not be an extra effort. So that's where these two
These were
things
the
have.
learnings for you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And and if I could ask you, Mr. Ayrwad, in terms of international best practices that we have tried to incorporate in the new edition of Gati Shakti, that he said the learnings were basically that it should be closer to railway lines and highways. If I could ask you about the international best practices that have been brought in the new version of the Gati Shakti, what would that be and what were the learnings?
Thanks, CT Infra, for organizing this conversation. It's really wonderful. And that to a rail show, which is, is not a very commonplace thing. Great to have such a conversation. And then I've heard, and you all have heard, my co-panelists, who were the dawns of the rail industry, looking at network creation, looking at terminals creation. And it's a great activity and a lot of dynamism which is added to the rail sector or the road sector or the terminals sector. Looking at the so-called the best practices elsewhere in the world and the learnings from there, I think the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan initiative is a unique initiative, truly transformative, and much more than it has already delivered, right? And I do not see any equal of such an initiative anywhere in the world. Further, let me add to that, added to PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan initiative, the National Logistics Policy. It is also having no equal across the world. We have tried to explore if we can find some reference on which we can further build upon. Actually, we have not found. In fact, let me further tell you, it was for the first time in the world that the definition of logistics was attempted. And the National Logistics Policy defines what logistics is all about. What is the scope of logistics, right? And then one realization which traverses through the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan or the National Logistics Policy, that is multimodality and the seamless multimodality, right? Which requires an integrated approach for development. And this is an indigenous lesson. We don't have to depend on anybody else to learn from, right? And this was like when we stated or made the statement about integrated approach in developing whether infrastructure or the services in the logistics sector, there was an echo of endorsement, right? The entire sector, be it from warehousing to transportation, railways, roadways, air, shipping, or be it packaging industry, everybody was for it and then supported this idea of integrated approach being adopted for development of infrastructure and other component of the logistics services. Now, this integrated approach has been realized through institutional arrangement. We have today all the states and union territories on board Gati Shakti platform and also on board the National Logistics Policy Initiative. 26 of the states have, or UTs have already their old state logistics policy. So they are on board. Then we have 48 ministries of Government of India, including infrastructure ministries, economic ministries, or social ministries on board. And all of them are acting in unison when you are thinking about planning infrastructure projects or trying to make a master plan for any particular sector, or thinking about locating the multimodal logistics parks or ensuring the multimodal connectivity to such facilities. Everywhere, the ministries, departments, industry, they're coming together to plan this infrastructure, which will cater in the best manner and the most optimal manner to the potential beneficiaries, that's industry, the business, and ensure economic growth in the country. Yeah.
Right. So it sounds very interesting that all of the ministries and all of the departments are coming together. I'm sure it comes with its share of challenges. If I were to ask you about what are the challenges that I'm sure there are some, and it is not as rosy as you're painting it out to be. I would, as a journalist, as a cynic, I would like to believe that. So, what are the challenges that you have faced in terms of implementing this integrated approach? Because it's not very, he himself said that there were challenges in the first phase of freight corridor when they were planning. Were there any challenges from your that you encountered, and how did you address those challenges?
See, the pains we'll keep to ourselves, and the rosy picture which we share with you is just to create that pleasant feeling and keep you encouraged. You know, we in the government definitely face a lot of challenges, and we tend to overcome each of them to whatever extent possible. There have been challenges. First challenge was bringing everybody on board, right? Selling the idea, and it is not enforcement of any idea minded. PM Gati Shakti is not at all about giving order and getting implemented things as desired. It has been ideas sold very well. And for selling a good idea, you have to have a product which is also good. So we tend to, we have made this product called Gati Shakti National Master Plan or the National Logistics Policy so very well. And I do not boast about doing it ourselves. This has been done by the stakeholders. The shape of PM Gati Shakti or shape of National Logistics Policy as it is seen and is in the public domain has been actually done by the stakeholders. There's been extensive consultations with the industry, with the other sectors of the government, state governments, union territories, and basis their feedback, the valuable, let me tell you, really valuable feedback which we have received from them. We have structured the National Logistics Policy. We have structured the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. Now, the biggest challenge has been, the willingness was the biggest challenge, which we have really got a tremendous success among every stakeholder in the government or in the industry. All have been willing without exception to be on board. Now, the second two aspects were like, we have to have for a rational decision making or rationalizing the decision making process, a data-based decision making approach. That we have been able to first overcome that hurdle of that so-called unwillingness or the hesitation. So that's been overcome. Now, the challenges of intensifying further. Like today, I may be making 100 decisions about planning. Of them, around 25% are supposed data-based, but 75% are still not data-based. Now, we are trying to get into that 75 or 50% state where majority of our decisions would be based on real data, right? We are also now adding to it planning to add the artificial intelligence, right? So in course of time, you should be not surprised, but you would have the pleasure of seeing these things coming through, wherein there would be a AI-enabled predictive planning platform, which Gati Shakti is today. So that would be able to do the planning of infrastructure, planning of the economic activities in general, even planning of locating such facilities like multimodal logistics parks or planning the infrastructure for that, basis the forecast, basis the projected demand of the economy, basis a couple of scenarios which can be built by using data analytics. And when I say data, it means both the physical fixed data as well as data about economic development or economic activities in the country. And then the way or the direction in which the economy moves, the infrastructure can be planned in that manner in terms of type of infrastructure or extent or the volume of infrastructure and the capacity which can be created accordingly. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned about the role of AI, and it's very interesting to know that you have already started tapping into that aspect of technology for the betterment of Gati Shakti. I wanted to learn from you, how do you plan to actually harness this new age AI blockchain technology for freight movement across the country?
Well, I would say that we have already made some headway as far as utilizing AI is concerned, and that's in partnership with the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Now we have come up with one project which is installed at a station called New Daud Khan in the Eastern DFC. Now here, what we are doing, we did have some other equipments called HABD, which is hot axle box detector. Now these we had installed about 100 of them, 120 of them. But now what we have done along with the IASC is is we call it MVIS. Now, machine vision inspection system. So now this is installed and the trains are running through. This clicks photographs and detects the defects in the wagons. And based on that, it's able to predict, okay, now this is in danger zone. So we have been able to avoid a lot of accidents, derailments on basis of this. And it has been continuously improving. I mean, the results that we are getting from April onwards, they've been very encouraging. And now we are planning to install a second one. So this is more like a joint venture with the IISC, their startup. They call it LHM. So with that, we have done this, and we are thinking of proliferating it more on the DFCs now. So we are going in for a second one also. Now this will be on the Western DFC, but the results are very encouraging.
And that is completely driven by the government. What sort of private participation? And that's a question that I would want to ask all of you, that what sort of private participation is required, and is to what level is required for the supply chain movement, the freight movement across the country to be a success, as you keep giving the example of, say, Singapore, maybe as successful as that. So what sort of private participation is required for it to be a success? One by one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, from you.
Oh, you decide. So, see, logistics is a game of efficiency. And if as a government, you have to deliver then for the efficiencies, we need to bring in private sector. So if you see the kind of structure, what we have proposed here is, I always say, we take your pain points and you take your gain points. What does it mean? That what are the biggest challenge in creating this infrastructure is? There are 2-3 bigger challenges, which is time consuming, long gestations, very low returns from that perspective. So that government takes the pain. Number one, land. No, getting land itself at the right place. Mind me, you can create an industrial node at any place using the policy initiatives. You can use a policy as your instrument in creating an industrial node or economic node. It cannot create a logistic hub by using the just policy node. It has to be at the right place. And when I say right place, along the movement of goods. If it is 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers away, it is not about the capital investment. It is also about the OPEX, which is index increasing your cost. You will never want to go deviate from these things. So, having a land in place, the rail connectivities, the highway connectivities, the other infrastructures, and all approval clearances, including the environment clearances, which we give on plated to the private sector. Now, here another role you will see in a very different form. I always say Gati Shakti we bring in. This will be the first example in the country where government comes in form of consortium. We form an SPV, where Railways, Ministry of Highways, Ministry of Civil, the Shipping, through a port or IWI. In fact, tomorrow we are having a stakeholder consultation in Banaras for IWI terminals. We are developing this facility. So we work together. So we have DFC is there, Railway is there, IWI is there, we are there cutting that facility. So we form a special purpose vehicle and state industrial corporations. All of us come together to award the concessions. So the private party needed to go. So entire the development has been taken care of the private parties. So business creation and business operation is with the private sector. Policy creation and larger infrastructure creation is with the government sector. So, and we give, if you see our structure, in fact, we discuss these things at many platforms, the kind of documents we have for private sector things, they're very different DBFOT contract we have brought in. Till now, the contract was what you will build, ABC road, this much of quantity, BOQ, and all that we are focusing on that thing. This time we are monitoring the contract through financial instruments. What does that mean? That we says we are giving a development period up to 15 years. Phase 1 you have to develop in 2 years. Phase 2 not later than 10 years. Phase 3 not later than 15 years. Again, what does the phase meaning is? If a total investment estimate by the authority is suppose 900 crores by the private sectors, 1/3 has to be invested in the phase 1. So we will be monitoring how much investment you are able to do it. We are giving a base master plan. If you want to do bring value engineering, improvise, please improvise that thing is. So there is a lot of flexibility has been given to the private sector to pick and choose what services you want to deliver in that area. Because we have proposed a master plan based on our understanding is, tomorrow a party comes, he tie up with some bulk, as I mentioned, the steel, cement, any of the bulk industry says from it comes there, I will tie up. I may be as my own CTO, I may tie up one CTO, train operator, train operators, which I'll be running their thing is. So I'll be looking at train operations, I'll be developing facilities. So I see a change in the commodity patterns here itself. So the flexibility has to be there with the private sectors. Those flexibility is implied with the 45-year concessions being given to this thing. So there are a lot of flexibilities in given to the private sectors to develop these facilities. Yes. So as just to give my report card, till now I was saying we have awarded 6 now under implementations. We are targeting another 9 in this financial year. So we're targeting 15 to be delivered. But more important, what 6 we awarded till now, we are looking 3 to be operational in this year. So now you will see, now this year onwards, we will going on operationalization of the infrastructure rather than just awarding and implementation this thing. And slowly the infrastructure creation will happen. And coming to another point which you were mentioning about, ask about the AIs and the blockchains and other things, especially using a technology. And you also ask the challenges. I'm actually looking for answer for that. I'll be talking to my friend, the DPIT for that, which we normally do. See, we have created technologies. We have, as I mentioned to you, the infrastructure creation within the park with the private sector. And there's a provision, they need to bring the best technologies to manage the park. A technology system will be there to upgrade that thing is. But when you create a network of this, then the technology will play an important role to integrate these facilities. So need to create technology to upgrade these things. That we are working on it. So how do we bring efficiency when the entire network of infrastructure is there, which is done by 20 various parties at the national level is. But the cargo will move by different parties. That will be really working on this now.
Mr. Ahirwar has to leave in another 2 minutes. So, I wanted to know from you. So, he mentioned that the role the government has to play is that of a facilitator as far as bringing in. Yes, yes, please, please.
Sorry, sorry for that. So, thanks for the very relevant question. Business is a business, right? And it's none of the government business. And supply chain is, if not all about business, a lot of it is about only business. So if I unbundle the supply chain, I see 4 pillars of supply chain. One is, of course, manufacturing, which is largely in the government, not largely in the private sector. The second pillar of the supply chain is logistics, be it infrastructure or the services. Again, if not completely, largely it is in the private sector, of course. There are major players like roadways and NHAI, NHLML, or dedicated freight corridor. They do provide a lot of services and infrastructure creation being done by them for logistics, but majority of the services are being done by the private sector. Now, the third component to the supply chain is the trade policies, whether or the policies in general, whether for the domestic trade or manufacturing or regarding global supply chains. So global policies as well. And the fourth element is the investment. Everything is about money. Putting in money, creating infrastructure or creating business, and then making money, right? So investment, which goes through all the previous 3 pillars, which I said, is the most vital component. Now, on these 4 pillars, government is doing their bit. But let me tell you, majority of the role and the determining role is to be played by the private sector. And we have just been trying to do our bit in form of EODB measures, in form of investment de-risking measures, in form of investment promotion measures, right? In form of creation of the infrastructure, like by Ministry of Railways, Ministry of Roadways, Civil Aviation, or shipping for that matter. That's being done. But to ensure its adequate and optimal utilization, if NHLML is creating multimodal logistics parks, they have to be utilized by the business. Now, for the business thing, again, the investment, the financial as well as other non-financial investment by the private sector will determine the outcome of every infrastructure which is being created, and that will determine the outcome in terms of the supply chain efficiency or resilience of the supply chain in the country or across the globe also. We often keep talking about the global supply chain and the resilience of global supply chain. Everything is all dependent on these four pillars which I just mentioned. So you
Right.
have a great role when
Right.
it comes to the private sector.
Right.
And we are there to play our role. Thank you
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Ayurvar. And I think you're, if you want to, I mean, yes, Mr. Bhatnagar, if I could pose the same question to you in terms of private participation, we cannot, and since we are talking about private participation, after you answer this question, I would open it to the private people present here, and we would really like to hear from them the challenges and what all do they want from the government in terms of ease of doing business, if I may call that. So yes, if you could.
I would say that yes, I mean, as far as the Eastern DFC was concerned, about 530 kilometers of it was initially planned on the PPP model. So that was, I mean, the real initiative initially, but then we didn't really get any partners. I mean, and finally, the government has decided that we would be, I mean, the Ministry of Railways would be investing money and coming up with the remaining part of that. So up to Andal, now it is from Sonnagar to Andal is now again with the Indian Railways. So that's where one place where I feel I think things really didn't materialize as expected. I mean, the kind of role that was expected for the private sector, but the other role that was envisaged was in creation of terminals, the large terminals, the MMLPs. We do have two coming up from the NICDC, but that's again government. But apart from that, there were many which were to come up from the private sector side, and some are still coming up. But again, they have been problems as far as land acquisition has been concerned. So they have faced problems in the land acquisition, or even in the land parcels they were able to get, they were facing issues with regards to the crossing the railway track coming to the highway. In terms of flyovers or the height of the underpasses being a bit limited, not really good 5.5 meters, I mean, as they were expecting. So there have been some issues. I mean, that's what I said. These have been kind of learning issues for DFC as well as. But yes, I mean as far as terminal creation is also concerned, I mean the Gati Shakti cargo terminal policy of railways, the Schedule 1 that provides for all these private terminals, some are coming up, but yes, I mean we would probably expect more. Apart from that, we have started a few services. I mean, one is the trucks on train service, and the other is the NMGHS, I mean, service which we are at present running between Rewari and Sanand, and the trucks on train between Rewari and Palanpur. So that's where, I mean, it's open booking for the trucks. So we are moving rakes of 30. So we are getting regularly 25, but still some vacant space is there, I mean, which is not getting booked. Similarly, in terms of NMGHS service, this was Rewari to Sanand. We extended it. Initially, it was Rewari to Palanpur, now up to Sanand. And we have offered another terminal that is called New Ancheli. That's 40 kilometers beyond Surat. So that provides for kind of connectivity between Delhi and Surat, definitely, and Delhi Mumbai also. I mean, that's just about 180 kilometers from there. So there also, I mean, there is one partner, I mean, Amazon, that has come forward, definitely very well, I mean, patronized. But then we are expecting from some others as well. That hasn't happened so far. So I mean, that's where we are kind of sort of feeling a bit let down. I mean, in terms of that, yes, I mean, there could have been a larger participation.
We have a lot of people from the industry here, and now today now I would like to open the house for questions. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for the experts sitting here, please raise your hand.
So right now our DFCC corridors are working along with our very much closer. Is it okay now? Sir, our DFCC corridors are right now working along with our older version of the goods carrying train as well. So what I could understand that DFCC and the goods train, both the things are working, but we are not uh, very much fully working with DFCC because the stations are placed little bit away from the national highways, state highways. That's how we are not able to reap the benefit of the DFCC totally. So, because I'm from the construction side, I just wanted to understand that how much time it will take for us to connect DFCC properly with the national highways. And I'm sure we must be facing a lot of problems of the land acquisition, some kind of construction issues which you mentioned about the underpasses. Because with the DFCC, our intention was entirely so that we could get rid of the right now the tracks which are taking our goods train so that we can operate DFCC 100% and we can multiply this to the total national connectivity with the faster movement of our goods carrying corridors. So how much time you think so that will delay or take to 100% connect in a proper networking line?
Yes, you did mention that you are looking at basically improving it to make it more viable, and yeah, the timeline is what I think she's.
Well, actually, we have been in touch with the state governments. I mean, building the roads is primarily, I mean, these roads are owned by the state governments and they are maintained also by the state governments or the National Highway Authority. I mean, as railways, we cannot really acquire land for a road and construct it and maintain it. So this part remains out of the purview of the DFCCIL or the Railways Ministry as such. So we have been in touch with most of the state governments. I mean, this UP state government has given very good response. Haryana, yes, I mean, we got very good connectivity now for the Rewari station, Palanpur, Gujarat. So we have been in touch with the concerned state governments. But these roads to the DFC stations, they have to be constructed and maintained by the state governments only.
So this will be the major issues because if unless we don't connect it, we won't be able to have the appropriate benefit of our DFCC corridors what we are constructing.
Well, let me say,
See, what you are saying is to some extent right, but please see, if you see on the larger transportation network, what happens is, and that's what we are working closely with the DFCC on that these are interchanges pointed. Interchange point for one mode of transportation, another mode of transportation. And what is multimodalities and what is an MMLPs meaning is, the biggest advantage of MMLPs are to create the interchanges facilities. And these are not simply interchanges facilities. Again, come back to my original point is, it is not just unloading from the train and loading to the road and vice versa, because when you say road, meaning that only. Now are the biggest work will be, as two of the organization which you are looking is, creating a larger logistics facility in that area. Suppose at the larger station, I have created a 300 acre, 400 kind of acres, a very large logistics facilities. You created the entire ecosystem for that. The moment you create an ecosystem, it cannot happen of its own while it has a last mile connectivity to the nearest highways, which you are asking. So that's what currently our working is going on. We jointly are looking at which are the projects which we can really look for, where such immediate requirement may come, which can harness things, rather creating a smaller facilities of just like what we earlier used to get good sheds or a smaller transit facilities for the trains to offload the materials. Things. The moment you do these facilities, it will start happening. And then see what happened is, as I mentioned to you, now come back to my infrastructure. I should not be posing question to me,
I
but
was
just to
about
answer
to
your
come
point.
to that part.
I am coming
also,
to your
sir.
point, just answering it. What I was telling her, I created 8 or 10, 5, 6 is already done, another 9 we are talking, 9, 10, 15 network you have done it. Of course, 15 is with us, maybe 2, 3 is with done by NICDC and 3, 4 other thing is. Then I will sit with all these organizations, get a network of systems. How do you really get an advantage of this? Because one thing you have planned at national level, when you are planning this thing is using Gati Shaktis, I have a DFC corridor, I have expressway corridors, I have an ICDC node upcoming, this thing is, economic node coming is, well, larger macro planning has been done on that basis. Now the another planning which is required to be done, that when I'm using it last, start utilizing these facilities, how the network effect will come. And network effect I'm looking from, again she asked the first question to be supply chain, which is for the industry. A large industry, how things will be moving, a cargo from consumption to the production centers, or vice versa, or exim cargo will be happening. So I think we are moving in the directions. Yes, Gati Shakti in a way helps us. Now, I will go back to the first thing is, now if he goes to any proposal, because I attend all that meetings, I see this thing is, he or any of us, and say, I am proposing this corridor, this station, this thing is, then he has to, the question will be asked and there itself. अरे ये इसका नेटवर्क कैसे बनाने वाले हो आप भाई, ये कैसे जाएगा रोड यहाँ से, सामान वापस कैसे जाएगा? पीपल आस्क मी, आप रोड बना रहे हो, रेलवे को कनेक्ट, अरे भाई वो रेलवे स्टेशन से कैसे कनेक्ट करना है? No, you are creating a road, it has to be connected to that way. I am talking about internal discussion will happen this way. Mr. Heva just left, he is a part of every meeting. I go only for my projects. He is part of every such meetings where such discussion happens. So I am saying it's just a 2 years, give us some time, you will be seeing that improvement, that we work together. But your suggestion is very valid, and that answer lies there. It is not just about creating a highway network connectivity in this thing. Unless you create a proper interchange facilities, and interchange, a terminology may be different. It comes to what I call as MMLPs or logistic facilities or whatever one wants to nomenclature is. Our logistic policy, national policy defines that.
But
So,
sir, as far as interchange facility, can we do that with the existing network of existing railway network, existing road network, or we have to only think about that in the future? Can that be done with the existing ones as well?
It is happening. You might have heard the GCT, cargo district terminals, 100. Next line up coming up. Now we both are talking with railways. Your GCT is coming up. We are working. This thing is what the difference is. So either you remain a very small piece of areas which our nomenclature has been changed, creating our facilities, or you're creating a larger facilities. I always debate with the state governments also. On one side, we are creating a transport nagar. If you ask me what is transport nagar, what was transport nagar to 30 or 40 years before? A modern MMLP. Till that time, we didn't know what the MMLP meaning is. In 1970s, what Sanjay Gandhi Transport Nagar or this Nagar that issues in Delhi, or you go to any city. Any railway has the kind of good shades. Now converting GCT, because new policy has come, you have to read that policy, or that policy gives an advantage, which allow private sector to come. Answer to her point is, how the GCT allow private sector creation by the railway or by the private sector. Both the provisions there which allows in somewhere previous PFT policies. So now what I am saying is the government is creating an enabling policy net policy framework and the enabling infrastructure with partnership in developing this can happen is where we all of, let me also, all of us also need to work, which are currently working is, looking is, okay, which are the project may happen, this thing is, but these are very large project. I'll tell you 2 years before my pain. When we started MLPs, they're hardly developed in the country. वेयरहाउस वाला बोलता है सब मैं तो वेयरहाउस बनाता हूँ, रेल टर्मिनल वाला बोलता है जैसे रेल टर्मिनल कॉन्फ्रेंस, रेल वाला बोलता है सब मैं तो रेल टर्मिनल करता हूँ, वो एमएमएल पे वो आईसीडी वाला बोलता है तो मैं आई एम ओनली आईसीडी एक्सपर्ट बट आई डोंट नो मच मोर देन दैट. So marrying 3-4 was the biggest challenge for us. And today we awarded 6, all 6 are different people, not one agencies. And I'm seeing another 3 at tender stage where I'm seeing all 3 are the competition is happening is maybe going to other 3 parties. I'll be very happy.
But when do we see the 3 coming up? Well, like finalized?
The tender?
Yeah.
The next quarter thing is.
Next quarter. All 3 of them will be
awarded. Tender is
awarded.
already on because before MC we issue the tender.
Okay.
Now the code is over and we get the approval in place. And now government in place, now we'll get the approvals and go ahead for these things. But
Right.
more than 3, we are targeting 9 this year. Another 6 in pipeline. 3 which I'm saying is Pune, Nasik and Anandpur. Then we are coming to Coimbatore, Hyderabad, and then Jammu, Patna, saying is and few more.
So there is enough appetite for...
So now I'm saying is, I'm asking this question in private sector also. So you also need to leverage yourself, as I mentioned, this is for the infrastructure. When the MMLB developer comes to us, we try to educate them, okay, one is infrastructure creation, which is bricks and mortars. But you have to run this business. So please start tying up with the industries.
Right.
The industry 2 part. One is the manufacturing units, maybe large manufacturing units. Another is transportation. Maybe you may tie up with some large shipping liners. Because it is not about the cargo handling at this level is. Like I gave you his examples. He's the biggest enabler of the infrastructure creation in what is DFC? DFC is a dedicated rail line is available for high speed. Ask him, he will give you. Recently, I was talking to MD Jain Saab. He was telling me during the tunnel time, they created 80 kilometer per average speed they brought. I don't remember the exact numbers. The train from the Gujarat to this place, non-stop. So he's an infrastructure creator. Now somebody has to come, as you mentioned, somebody has to come. Our operations has to use. It can be Indian Railway, it can be other operators also.
So I would add to it. What we are facing, the infrastructure part or the road connectivity part, it's only in terms of when we try to set up a terminal connected to DFC station. But DFC has enabled very rapid transport. So if you find any other place, the existing terminals on Indian Railways or creating a new terminal on Indian Railway, that also benefits equally from the DFC. It's a few kilometers on Indian Railway networks, then the train comes onto DFC and then it moves fast. So, as such, the terminals can be created anywhere. They are benefiting from DFC. But yes, some issues in terminals connected directly to DFC. That's
Yes, the gentleman here, he has a question.
Sir, I am J.K. Bhatti, ex-additional General Manager for Rights. My question will be on linkage of economic corridor with the Indian Railways or DFC. Sir, as you are aware that in G20 summit in September 2023, Government of India has a summit and its presidency theme was One Earth, One Family and One Future. Now under multinational rail link deal, India is planning to link with Middle Eastern and European countries, that is India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, Italy, France and Germany. This economic corridor will be having both rail segments as well as shipping segments corridors. And ultimately there will be the additional burden on the Indian Railways. Now my question is, how this additional load will be tackled if it be connected with the DFC or Indian Railways?
Thank you. I'll just answer that. I would say that both the DFCs, Eastern DFC and the Western DFCs, they have been created with a capacity of 120 trains each way. And each train can be a long haul train, that is double length. So, in comparison to a normal train. So, we can say long haul means two trains put together. So, 120 trains each way and each can be a long haul. So, that means 240 normal trains each way. So, there is a huge capacity, surplus capacity that we have is still on the WDFC. We are moving around 40-45 trains each way at present. So, there is immense amount of line capacity which is still available. And we can definitely handle that much. Definitely.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll just quickly ask both the gentlemen to make closing remarks. So, if I were to ask you about summing up the future of supply chain movement in the country, how would you sum it up, and what does the future look like to you?
I think the future is very bright. Definitely. And DFCCIL has also proposed 3 more DFCs. One is from extending a very long one. That is from the Palghar in near Mumbai to Dankuni, then Vijayawada to Itarsi, and Vijayawada to again Dankuni. So that's on the east coast. And the projections that we are getting for the traffic, especially for the east coast, it's a very heavy. Probably by the time it gets constructed, it will be. There would be enough traffic to move around on that. Finish the capacity of that. So there is good amount of traffic available. And the future is very, very, very bright. Definitely. And we hope that all these other DFCs also come through. That would depend on the government's decisions, but the DPRs have been submitted.
So, do you think that we need to increase the pace at which we are rolling out the MMLPs in order to capture this supply chain movement that is there, or we are well on track?
We are on track, but I think we need to do a much larger thing because it is not just about MMLPs per se. We have a going for classical definition. I was talking to my previous conversations in this. I see a very clear change change in the supply chain completely in times to come. And for that to happen is you have to have a different set of models creating this thing. Is what I always see is still the market is working in a fragmentation manner. Some people are, if you see around the cities goes, you see a lot of boxes. When I say boxes, warehouses coming in. And these are not small boxes, going up lakhs of square feet, single boxes. Many of you will be aware about this. Then you have a separate trucker facilities and these things that's coming, whatever you call it. Then we have railways, these things. So I see at each economic node level. Economic node may not to be a very classical way of an industrial node on these things. In for a large habitation, it's always an economic node too. So different at different scale level in a hub and spoke network, that I see it going to happen. And that's what I think when we plan it at larger level, we do a planning at that level is, and we see in times to come, India will be very different when it comes to supply chain and logistics infrastructure creation.
So it would be right to conclude that it is ever evolving, the entire freight movement, supply chain movement, in order to make it seamless. It is work in progress and will remain so for some time. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us and taking time out for this discussion. Thank you, everyone, for sitting through this discussion. I hope. I hope it was worth the while for all of you. Thank you so much. Stay tuned to ET Rail Show.